Hey, what's happening? Welcome to Maych TV. So, over recent weeks, I've been doing a bit of a multi-part guide to how to rebuild Liverpool's midfield. I was going to do a specific focus on Thiago, but I actually think I'm going to blend this in and have a bit of a wider chat around the transfer links of the moment, which are Jude Bellingham and Enzo Fernandez, and maybe touch a little bit on Amrabat as well, but predominantly focusing on those two. And like, is it possible that Liverpool could actually go into the market and buy both Bellingham and Enzo Fernandez, and why it is possible, but also why it might be a bit of a flight of fancy, and what does it mean, and where would they fit in, and all that kind of good stuff as well. Because obviously, I've discussed Jordan Henderson, and I brought Bellingham into the conversation heavily in that one. We discussed Fabinho the other week, and honestly, this was going to be a conversation around Mason Mount initially, because he was being heavily linked at the start of the World Cup. Those links have kind of died off to the point that yesterday or 2 days ago, Chris did a tier ranking of what he feels is the likelihood of all the players who've been linked to Liverpool joining Liverpool, and I completely forgot to mention Mason Mount as one of the players that could have been involved in all of that. But Enzo Fernandez links have been very, very strong in recent days. Amrabat links have been very, very strong, and Jude Bellingham ones continue to gather pace. What I think we'll see in the coming days is probably a cooling off of Bellingham. You'll start to see Real Madrid's name come back a bit more because there's no more news to be had around Bellingham, I think, is the issue. So if you're trying to drive clickbait and you're trying to drive, views and all that kind of stuff, there's nothing more to add until something happens with it. So the best thing to do to keep that story rolling on is to create some sort of drama or conflict. So you're going to see Liverpool might balk at the price, so you're going to see another club being interested. They're going to be prepared to spend big, and that'll get everyone on edge and feeling really uncomfortable and unhappy about the whole thing. And the cycle will continue until some real new developments happen in Bellingham. But just for what it's worth, the Bellingham stuff feels really solid. It feels really, really likely, which I think we know how Liverpool spend, or we've seen how Liverpool have spent up to this point. They have been largely sell to buy. They've been very canny in the transfer market. They've brought players in, got an added value from them and moved them on, or they've developed players, brought them into the first team just enough to increase their value, and been very shrewd in how they value those players against other players who've moved in the transfer market and gotten good fees in return for them. So, as much as Phil Coutinho is on the top end of the spectrum, you've also got players like Brad Smith and Jordan Ibe, Dominic Solanke. We got decent money for Christian Benteke, moving him on. These are all players who Liverpool got probably ultimately the most value of their football careers in moving them on. Ryan Brewster, actually probably the biggest and best, most recent example of that. There's a chance all those players will have a great renaissance in their careers, probably less so Benteke, of course. But it does look like Liverpool got the highest valuations they're ever likely to get. But that's kind of by the by. What we've seen is them put the money back into the squad, and not above and beyond. The money that's been made has gone back into the squad. I don't think that's an arguable point. I think we can all see that the evidence has certainly been there. So we're in a world at the moment where there's a slight possibility that Liverpool might have to spend £200 million in either one transfer window or over two to reboot the midfield. And look, if you're looking at Enzo Fernandez and Jude Bellingham, that's probably the best part of what it's going to cost to pick up both of those players. Jude Bellingham is being talked at between 100 and 150 million euros. So you're looking at like about £100 million, maybe slightly more if you get into a mad bidding war for him. Enzo Fernandez's release clause has been reported with conflicting reports, but one report initially said it was like 130 million euros. There's another one that says it's closer to 70 or 80. Either way, it's a big chunk of change, and maybe that's just the case that it might simply be the case that Liverpool have got no choice but to go big if they want to go and get big players, but it's not going to fit in with how they've done things up to this point. There's no more value in that squad. The only players, if you wanted to fund that with player sales, you'd be having to sell Mohamed Salah, or you'd have to sell I'm not, Van Dijk. I'm not sure how much money you get for it. You still get top money for Van Dijk, but I'm not sure you're getting what you would have got 2-3 years ago. He's just a bit older and had a serious knee injury since then. And look, I don't think Liverpool will look to move those players on. The simple fact is the way the squad has been managed, for better or for ill, and given how Liverpool have challenged in the for all the trophies that they've challenged for in recent years, I think we could say it's been a pretty good way of doing things. But the time has kind of come where that cycle has ended. And the cycle, you can look back and you can say, well, look, COVID killed the market. It certainly killed the market for players between sort of 10 million and 30 million. A lot of the clubs that Liverpool were very good at moving players onto, I've mentioned the Jordan Ives and your Rhian Brewsters, teams at the bottom end of the Premier League or really challenging to get out of the Championship. We've had a really, really good success rate of getting great value in moving players onto those clubs, and that market's absolutely evaporated. So all of a sudden, your cumulative sort of 50 to maybe even 100 million and stuff that you can do in a window or two windows, that went. Liverpool had to double down on renewing contracts. They've had to keep players maybe longer than they would have done. Gini Wijnaldum, good example of that. There's a chance that Liverpool will lose Oxlade-Chamberlain and Naby Keita, all on free transfers. There's three midfielders who could, arguably come in and do a job on any given game of football for Liverpool, and therefore could arguably go and do it at any big football clubs. I mean, look, Gini goes to PSG, ultimately moves on to Roma. Where Keita goes will be interesting to see. And Oxlade-Chamberlain, I'd be shocked if he doesn't get a half-decent Premier League move. He could play for a whole host of top clubs. He'd get a game for Newcastle. I remain convinced of that. Your Leicesters, and there might even be better, maybe even a move back to Arsenal, you never know. But the thing is that they're all, okay, not maybe the price that you paid for them, but there was certainly a lot of money in there which would have helped. And is that a bit of mismanagement, or is it a bit of circumstantial thing where Liverpool kind of had no choice but to hang on to footballers because they didn't have the ability to get the right kind of value for them? And you might argue that, just sell them, move them on. But it's all part of an ecosystem that you've created. There's a luster and a vibe and an ambience and an aura, that's the word I was actually looking for, around Liverpool and how they conduct business. It's why when Barcelona play hardball and destabilise Coutinho and make him claim he's got a bad back and all that stuff, Klopp wants rid, and Liverpool's owners go, nope, not letting him go. I know you don't want him, but we're not going to be bullied, because if we get proved that we can be bullied, you're forever going to be bullied. If you let yourself be bullied, you will be bullied. Whereas if you stand up to the kid, listen, you might take a whack, but they'll think twice about messing with you again. That's the basic rule of the schoolyard, and weirdly the rule in business and football business as well to some extent. So if you start throwing assets away at really low values, then people will start to think they can come and get your players for low values. It's all part and parcel of the same thing, and then that damages your ability to go and negotiate as well, because you're seen as being a bit of a crap negotiator. Anyway, the point is Liverpool are where they are, and where I'm kind of driving at this is that, look, Enzo Fernandez, look at him as a footballer. Him and Jude Bellingham profile differently. I feel like Enzo Fernandez is more Thiago-like. He's a bit more robust. He does more of the defensive sort of stuff. He's obviously got a great engine. He is on the shorter side as well, and we had this conversation the other week about, I don't think you can carry too many short players, but if you can bring Bellingham in, who's a 6-footer, then, and you can obviously get someone, you still got Fabinho in there, and maybe you go and get someone else of a similar physique. We mentioned Declan Rice on the Fabinho show. You can afford to have another guy in there as well, who's a bit more diminutive, but is a super skillful player. Harvey Elliott goes into that mix. You move Bellingham over to the left for games, you put Harvey Elliott in on the right, and then you've got a really great balance in your side all of a sudden, and you've refreshed what you do. But what this is all going to come back to is that is a huge chunk of money, and Liverpool have shown no signs in previous years of dipping into their pockets beyond the means of the football club. However, this is what's going to be really telling in this January transfer window, perhaps slightly less so, but certainly in the summer transfer window. There is no immediate signs of sale. So there is not a consortium or a wealthy individual or a state or whatever who have gotten to the point where there's paperwork being signed. So there's not going to be a Liverpool takeover ahead of January, and that also means that the time it takes to move these things on, you're looking at summer at the very, very earliest, I would imagine. That's how it looks. Chelsea even takes, Chelsea is expedited. That's rushed through. There's a deadline on that. It has to be done by a certain point. So it's like, get it done. And it's a mess. And it kind of flies through the door right on the deadline, doesn't it? And it's a bit of a shit show as a result of that. Liverpool are not going to do shit show deals, not at this point. It's going to be done in the best possible, tidiest sort of way. So, you can, when you've got time and you've got comfort around what you do, and that's fine. However, on the pitch, there maybe isn't quite that comfort, and Liverpool and the FSG and the people running the football side of things need to be careful, and they need to make sure that there's the value in that asset isn't lost, because you might, for us, throw in £200 million to try and, it's a ridiculous amount of money. It's ridiculous. But if it protects the value of a £3.2 billion dollar plus 4 billion, $5 billion asset, then you probably do that. There is a degree as well as which that Jurgen Klopp has got a bit of a power play maybe going on here, where he'll happily expedite the, and play the good soldier when it comes to Sale, not kick up a fuss, and part of his terms will be just make sure that the football side keeps ticking over, because if Jurgen Klopp decides to throw a hand grenade at Anfield and says, well, hang on a second, this is all going to pot, he'll have absolute anarchy on his hands, and then try selling an asset that's on fire, which is basically what would happen. People would march with pitchforks and torches down to Anfield and probably set it alight if Jurgen Klopp told people to do that, even in a roundabout sort of way. So as much as it doesn't fit in with the profile of Liverpool to go big, they actually just need to go big. They certainly need to go big on one. So I think you need to get Bellingham or Enzo Fernandez, and you're looking at about 100 million each in that regard. If you get one of them, it gives you a little bit of freedom to go and be a bit cannier and go and be a bit smarter in the transfer market. But with Julian Ward moving on, Michael Edwards already gone, Mike Gordon moving upstairs to handle Sale, either this is fucked and there's nobody with the hands on the wheel, or it's literally in cruise control. It's on autopilot. The work's already done. And to be honest, when you're reaching that point where you don't need to have loads of canny, clever deals, Liverpool just need to go out and buy some stars. And to buy stars, you just need Jurgen Klopp, and you need someone to sign the checks. Billy Hogan can sign the checks, and Jurgen Klopp can get the guys to the table. So that's what it feels like right now. Is that, as much as it sounds a bit naive, and it's a bit, I wouldn't be putting my house on it. I'm not going to throw all my happiness eggs in this basket. But it honestly wouldn't shock me if Liverpool went huge. Not necessarily in January, because I still don't think, unless you can convince Dortmund to let Bellingham go, or Benfica to let Enzo Fernandez go, and maybe one of the other two of the players that we've been linked with, looking at Gvardiol at Leipzig, or, I don't know, Kudus at Ajax as an example. It's going to take a bit of work to get a really, really good player out in January. It might be possible. I don't know. Liverpool certainly could really do with that boost. But when it comes to summer, I think, like the Canate deal, I think most of the work will be getting done either now or has been done in recent weeks. And it's just a case of people pushing the buttons on stuff rather than hardcore negotiation going on. And there's some players that which you don't need that. All the negotiation is done in person with the player. Sell the concept to the player, and Jurgen is the best in the business at doing that. And that's why I think Jude Bellingham is, it feels like it's almost a certainty, and again, lots of things happen in football. I've seen transfers that were nailed on that have been multiple sourced by reputable journalists, completely collapsed for a variety of reasons. I mean, for God's sake, Nabil Fekir had his interview done, he had his photographs done, and he doesn't end up a Liverpool player. One of the most famous transfer collapses in Liverpool's recent history, and there's tons of other examples that never quite made it out into the public as well, which a lot of us will know about, or through rumour and hindsight and stuff. But no, I think, look, if you're going to reboot Liverpool's midfield, they need two. They need one absolute star, and if you can go and get two stars, look what Real Madrid have done. Copy Real Madrid, because Real Madrid have had one of the best midfields on the planet for years now. They've had Luka Modric still playing on, Toni Kroos, Casemiro, brilliant, and a couple of other bits and pieces have kind of backed them up over the years. That badly needed refreshing, so they went out and they bought Camavinga, and then they buy Tchouaméni, and they've got Valverde, and they've got all that ready to come up. Liverpool feel like they've refreshed everything, but they've refreshed the attack. That still possibly needs one more in January. They've refreshed the defence. They've got good depth in the goalkeeping department. The midfield needs it, but I don't think you can do this on a shoestring anymore. They bought Harvey Elliott in for an absolute bargain, and the way I tend to look at it when you're buying groups of players for a position or a unit, what Harvey Elliott, like 10 million? Carvalho could potentially be into that mix. Isn't it a similar sort of boat in that? Fabinho we paid 40 million for. Thiago was a steal for his quality. So as much as you are paying 100 odd for Bellingham, and you might be paying 100 for Fernandez to complete your midfield, you've saved money by doing the legwork, by having Curtis Jones, by having Harvey Elliott. You've potentially saved yourself another £100 million. So you kind of average it out across all of your positions, and that's one way to psychologically, and maybe in a bank balance way, make it work for Liverpool. What do you think? Is Enzo Fernandez the business? I think he's the business. I think Jude Bellingham is the absolute business as well. And that's the kind of pool that Liverpool needs to shop in now. We need to do the kind of business that Real Madrid are doing, because we need to behave like a top-table, top-tier football club. Doesn't mean you can't keep pick bargains up. Go and find gems. Go and scour the youth market. Bring your wonder kids in. Do money ball on players who you think are undervalued. Amrabat might be one of them, or guys you wouldn't normally think would be don't pass the eyeball test but pass the stats test. Keep doing that, but you need to go and get some guys who actually matter on the world stage, because your standing in the world stage matters. So go and get at least one, and if you get two, then Jesus Christ, the world of football can take note. Because Liverpool, as much as Erling Haaland, he's at Man City, he's got one more year after this before his release clause is activated, and he's definitely going to Real Madrid. You've got a chance to really, really kick on and really make the fight between Pep and Klopp for the next couple of years interesting. And then, hey, if a sale goes through and gives Liverpool loads of money on top, then that just continues to perpetuate itself. Anyway, that is that. There's a Boss video out on the 888 Sport channel. They're talking about who could be the next England manager. I personally, Rafa Benitez. I don't know. I'll put a comment in there. Go and see my comment over on there and leave yours as well. Drop a like on that. Drop a like on this as well. Don't forget to check all of our Boss stuff out over on Redmen as well. We're doing some great things. We've got a brand new podcast Tuesday morning, 10:30 live on the Redmen YouTube channel. Brand new studio as well. As I say, I've been doing some bits and pieces to all of the studios. I'm really excited to unveil a couple of the Boss bits in this next week or so and into the new year. Anyway, Boss, You're amazing. You're amazing. You are. I hope people tell you it in your life, unless you're a bellend, in which case, you know that too. Go and check out 888 Sport. Drop a like, comment below, and I'll see you all very soon. Ta-ra.
So you've got Southgate. Southgate can't be on my list.
Well, Southgate's
No,
on
he
my
has to. He
list.
has to be on the list.
Nah, he's
Right
not
at
on
the
the
I mean,
list.
for me,
The answer to the next England manager isn't Gareth Southgate.
There's no way I'm having, and I love him. Obviously, look, my hero. But there's no way Gerrard's there in Gerrard third is
Gerrard's a better manager than Southgate.
PA.
what?
Gerrard's won silverware.
I know. Yeah.
But Gareth Southgate's been relegated with England.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
been relegated with England. Do you know what that means? This England team, how good they are.
League,
They've been
not
relegated.
Yeah.
He's relegated as Middlesbrough manager. He's relegated as England manager. He is the very definition of a loser.
But do you honestly think, forget your hatred for Southgate, do you honestly
Hatred,
believe
it's just
that
fact.
Gerrard could do a better job for England than Southgate?
Yeah. Anybody could. Anybody could. What's Gareth Southgate done for England? Everybody tells me that he's done stuff. What's he done?
He's made me fall in love with England again. Here we go. Watch,
I don't even know what
watch.
that means. I don't even know what that means. When people keep talking to me about things that don't matter, tell me about winning games. Tell me about performances. Tell me about silverware. I'm worn out by it. I'm worn out by his inadequacy. I'm worn out by just how average he is.
We're gonna
He's a
revisit
distinctly
this
average
in a year's
man.
time when they've appointed Sean Dyche and he's going to be begging for Southgate to come back.
Sean Dyche is a better manager than Gareth Southgate.
Maybe
I
not
don't want Sean
internationally.
Dyche to be England manager, but Sean Dyche is a better manager than Gareth Southgate.